Hey,
Hi there.
everybody.
Hi, everybody. We are, guys. I feel like I'm getting sick. Yeah, yep, I'm getting sick. My daughter is sick.
It's that
What's
time of
wrong?
year.
Yeah, the kids' germs.
Yep.
Um, okay, yeah. Welcome to Recap with Mac for the week of August 29th, 2026. Mac, what kind of updates you got for us this week?
Well, I think everyone has seen that the AK took action on this issue federally of whether the pseudodoxal rule and the press release that they released with it were consistent. And it was clear that while the DEA was willing to establish a clear policy that they would not enforce against naturally occurring levels of pseudodoxal in any finished product, as long as it wasn't enhanced, that they were going to exercise their enforcement discretion. The problem with that is that you're dealing with 50 AGs and you're dealing with hundreds of local jurisdictions. And we have seen from very sad experience what happens when a local cop picks up someone and on whatever pretense, and they end up with a product that would have a zero tolerance level as it is expressed in the rule or the order, and that would expose them to potentially a felony conviction. And that's just something that's unacceptable to us, because we at the AK, while it was a great win for the DEA to recognize, or the Department of Justice to recognize the significance of the issue, to issue that press release, which protects anyone from a federal, well, I shouldn't say protects anyone, protects most cases from a prosecution at the federal level. We still have that exposure on the other end. We have said that we don't like the Controlled Substances Act provision that captures people for simple possession, and we're going to change that, or attempt to change it, with our Kratom Consumer Protection Act at the federal level. We want to be consistent on this issue, and we're going to fight for it, and that's the purpose of the litigation. And I think that we're hopeful that we're going to prevail on this, and it will at least trigger a discussion where we can talk directly with the attorneys in this case and get them to see if they can accommodate the request, which is simple. We want them to do the same thing that they said they were going to do in the press release, simply put it into the final order.
So, are you willing? I mean, because I see the anti-kratom, one of the places over there on X, talking about how Miss Ross was right. Was she right all along?
She was not. This is where, listen, the 7OH advocates are obviously very impassioned, and I get it, and they'll go to these extremes. What Miss Ross was wrong about is she said that everything that the federal government is doing obviously is the anti-7OH, and that's because of the science, right? And she was plucking out of the argument she was making is that pseudo is going to get captured into all products, and therefore you are going to have a condition where you could end up being enforced against. But our position is that naturally occurring non-enhanced levels of pseudodoxal are the ones that are the problem. She took a little broader view in terms of what the way I interpreted what she was saying. What she was saying was that it will automatically be scheduled. But what the FDA and HHS and DEA said from the outset, we are not targeting naturally kratom. So here's the question: does natural pseudo occur, right? And if you read the press release, it said that the DEA is not convinced because they've not seen any published literature documenting that there is pseudo levels in natural occurring levels. Well, there is. And the fact that they didn't know about it doesn't excuse it. So there is a University of Mississippi study which specifically says that it occurs at natural levels. That's part of the production, and the distinction's important. It's the enhanced levels of pseudodoxal. So it's just one of those things. Now the question is, when do you detect it? So is there a detection methodology, as is evidenced in the Mississippi paper? It says that it's in the natural plant material. So it's not when it gets extracted. that
Mm.
extraction can increase the pseudodoxal level or isolate it. But again, not chemically enhanced. It's just part of that process of the using FDA approved food grade solvents. You're going to see the natural oxidization process, just like 7-OH. So it's maintaining the ratios that's important. So this issue it gets in the weeds. It's complicated, but that's what the DEA does. They deal with in the weeds complicated issues, and they really needed to look at this more closely. I think that what happened, at least that's my impression in multiple discussions with these folks, they thought that we're dealing with the 7-OH problem, and you should be grateful, kind of thing. And you should be really grateful when we put in the press release that we're not going to enforce against it. Well, thank you at the federal level, but what about Boontown, Kentucky?
US, yeah.
I mean, that's the problem. So we just want this to be clarified. I actually consider this to be a friendly lawsuit because there are people within DEA who agree with us completely. And there just happened to be a ongoing discussion among the scientists, and they decide to come down very close call on one side. So I think that we'll be able to nudge them into the right position as we go forward here.
The DEA is agreeing with you guys?
There are people at the DEA who completely agree with us.
That is wow.
Yeah. What happens? This is that's true at the FDA too. Even when the FDA was at its height of trying to ban kratom back in 2016, there were people at the FDA who agreed with us and said, "You guys, we just can't convince the Doug Throckmorton, who was at the time the chief policy person in the commissioner's office that was driving the anti-kratom train." And so these discussions take place, and it's not, to me, not the least bit surprising that you're going to find people that are debating this internally within the agencies. That's what they should do, and they are doing. And in this case, I think they just came down on the wrong side of the ledger, and hopefully this lawsuit will help them to understand that.
I imagine it's kind of like some of those hearings where we are just like, man, like the roller coaster ones where everybody's just like down in it, and then you have like a couple people that speak up, and they're the only voice of reason. So I imagine it's somewhat like the same,
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. And you see what's happening in Massachusetts. We had to file a lawsuit there too, and that was to get them to come to their senses, and we hope they will. But you've got the Department of Health, which has taken this anti-kratom posture because they're being fed by the addiction recovery centers without looking behind it to say, why are they asking us to do this? Why are they drawing the conclusions? And I hope today we can talk about Dr. Andrew Kolodny, because he's sort of driving this train with the addiction recovery center people. And so the Department of Health on a regular basis deals with these addiction recovery centers. They do on a regular basis because it's a major issue to protect the public against the opioid crisis. So they're friends. They're in bed together. They're working together on a daily basis. And they say, oh, ban kratom. And so reactionary, these health departments are doing exactly that. They're not looking at the science. When you talk to them, they say, oh, we didn't know that. Well, the obvious question is, why didn't you know it? It's out there. It's not, your duty and responsibility is to actually investigate, research, come up with what the science says. And if you want to look at the best example of the bias against kratom creeping into good sense, look at what happened in 2016, and then repeated in 2018, and then repeated in 2021, when the FDA claimed that there were 9 deaths in a 12-month period in Sweden. It was in the Federal Register notice when they published it on August the 29th or 30th in 2016. It was in the subsequent Federal Register notice that was published in recommended in 2017 and 18. When it was turned down in 18, we got a copy later of what it said. It included the same death report. In 2021, they submitted the same thing. Now, that's publicly, that's true. But there was a peer-reviewed published article by Swedish, what do they call it? I've forgotten. There's a term over there in Sweden they call their medical examiners. I think they're called forensic pathologists. And they published an article that said, no, that wasn't exactly correct. It was actually the adulteration of that kratom product with O-desmethyl tramadol at lethal levels. Now, that should have been front and center for the FDA scientists, because they are required by statute to survey all of the literature prior to publication. Now, they either saw it and ignored it, or they didn't research for it. So that's where sometimes the individual bias of these people that work in, federal or state or local departments that are responsible for this miss things, or because they let bias, or they let the people that they deal with every day dictate to them, and they end up getting caught with their pants down on this kind of thing. So that happened here.
Didn't O-desmethyl tramadol just become scheduled too?
I was thinking the same thing.
Yeah, I think so. I think, yeah, absolutely. But it's a very potent, powerful, valuable drug.
Yeah.
But it's got to be prescribed and dosed appropriately. And you can't adulterate a kratom product with that kind of a very potent drug.
How did they adulterate it? Was it in liquid? Was it in liquid, or was it powder form mixed in with the leaf?
It was powdered form. The Krypton, the product that was at issue there, was represented to be a powdered kratom leaf product, and they'd infused in some fashion. I didn't investigate this. O-desmethyl tramadol into it. So that's how easy it happens. That's how. And when you see the Massachusetts Department of Health and all those local health departments saying kratom is bad, it's dangerous, and it's going to kill someone, or it is killing people, that's the narrative that comes directly from the addiction recovery centers. That's it. And they need to look beyond that. They need to say, okay, we deal with them on a daily basis. We get it. They do God's work. Get it. Now they're wrong on this one. And they just need to call them out.
I watched Killer Kolodny presentation the other day at a prescription drug monitoring thing. He's still calling kratom an opioid. He's trying to drive that home to these doctors.
Yeah, and it's those boring long presentations where people just kind of tune out halfway through, and they're like, okay, we get it. Kratom's an opioid.
Yeah, exactly right. So think about this. I mean, he said it in Georgia. He declared that kratom is an opioid, and he said because it activates the mu-opioid receptors. So does coffee, so does cheese. I mean, so does soybeans. This is a crazy definition. And Representative Ah in Georgia said the same thing.
Yeah.
It's they're peddling the same talking point that's not accurate scientifically. Because and by the way, those things do. Metrogene activates the mu-opioid receptor, so does 7-OH. The way that the 7-OH and kratom work together in natural form is the mediating effect that drives it to that very weak, classified as very weak kind of impact on the opioid receptor activity. And it goes to the G protein pathway and ends up at the sectors of the brain in natural kratom leaf form, which help people feel better, give you mild pain relief, but doesn't go to the sector of the brain that's going to give you that euphoric high, gets you in an addiction cycle, and ends up with respiratory suppression. So now I say all that, and my dear friend, Miss Rayner, will say he doesn't understand the science. And it's because I don't articulate the science that she wants me to in order to support 7-OH being on the market. Because the science, the real science, is pretty clear that these are dangerous products. So 7-OH activates the mu-opioid receptor too, and it is classified as it doesn't have the direct impact on the mu-opioid receptors that some substances do. So by comparison, 7-OH is a weaker product, but that doesn't mean it's not dangerous.
But its binding affinity is stronger.
Yeah, it's a partial agonist, but its binding affinity is really interesting. Now, Chris McCurdy was explaining it, where he says that when you take natural kratom leaf products and they hit the mu-opioid receptors, the metrogene competes with the 7-OH, and it actually limits the 7-OH activity.
It's slow down, buddy.
Yeah, when you flip the ratios so that it's majority 7-OH, this is a gang beating up on the metrogene. And so it overwhelms it, and then it goes right to that sector of the brain that delivers that euphoric high. So the actual science behind this is fascinating, but it has real world consequences when you have a medical doctor like Dr. Ah, who's a very intelligent woman, who has believed that when Dr. Kolodny was right when he was peddling nonsense, and I'll say that again, big time nonsense, because he says, oh, it's defined as an opioid because it activates the mu opioid receptors. It's nonsense. So he also said in his presentation that as he has analyzed, and this was fascinating to me, he came back into the actual delivering services to patients, to treating patients after a hiatus. That hiatus was when he was on his crusade against opioids, by the way, when he was doing the very same thing he's doing now by bringing a methodology that is so fundamentally corrupt in terms of the delivery of good science. He now is turning his sights on kratom. He said, and think about what he was trying to do. He was telling those Georgia legislators, you can trust me because I came back into my clinical practice, and every single one of my patients that came across the door was addicted to kratom. Now think about that just on its how could that be? If he is an opioid specialist, an addiction specialist, every single patient coming across the door is kratom. Was he overstating what he was saying? Or was he just flat lying? I mean, that's the question, right? So then he had to disclose the truth when he's up in Suffolk County. And then he starts to over explain because he could see, I'm going to puff myself up. What he explained was that he is on call to consult with doctors who admit patients to the hospital with addiction problems. And when he's then called to the bedside of those patients that have self-identified or through whatever process that the physician that was treating them determined it was a kratom case. So because it's a kratom case, Mr. Kratom, Dr. Kolodny, gets called to the bedside. And he has the guts to stand before that legislative body and say, every single one of my patients are kratom addiction. Well, that's like saying that every time someone calls the backyard pool cleaner, that 100% of his cases are to clean the pools in the backyard. Yeah, so what? I mean, but he wanted desperately to be able to deliver that point. And then he relies upon these other experts. He says that in 2016, that there was a definitive statement made by then FDA Commissioner Scott Gottlieb that said kratom is an opioid. And the way that Dr. Gottlieb justified it was that, and by the way, Dr. Kolodny absolutely lied about this. He said there was a study done. There was no study done. It was a phase computer model that applied that computer modeling to the kratom alkaloids and called it an opioid. There was no study. It was simply a computer model. And then they plugged in to say, does this fit? That's not a study by any standard, but that's what he called it because that enhances credibility. Believe me, because I'm back in practice and I'm an addiction specialist and I'm the greatest. Well, I can't, he's got to compete with Michelle Ross for this, but he's the greatest, scientist and researcher on kratom, and he wants to build his credibility. So trust me, Mr. Legislator and Ms. Legislators, I only treat these patients. I'm the expert on this, and I've done all this stuff before the U.S. Congress, before the UN, and all this stuff. And I've done those things too. It doesn't make me the expert that he claims to be. And here he is sitting there saying, trust me, because Dr. Gottlieb said it was. There was a study behind it, which is untrue. I'm treating every patient that walks through the doors because of kratom. He went a little further in Suffolk County. He said, not only did they start with kratom, then they went to 7-OH, and then they went to other harder drugs. All the gateway drug.
That's what
7-OH, kratom. There is no data to support that kind of nonsensical evaluation, but he is so hell bent to make kratom his next cash cow. That's what it appears to be. That's my opinion based on what he's doing, because it's certainly not balancing the science. Now, what he fails to do when he says, Dr. Gottlieb says that it is an opioid in 2016, right? That's what he said. He doesn't look at all of the science that's evolved since 2016, and that is eons in the scientific world 10 years ago. And he doesn't say, well, by the way, that was contradicted. The the phase study that was developed by the FDA was roundly castigated by all independent scientists. So it didn't share that little tidbit. And he does not say the truth, which is that there has been further scientific evaluations and that the actual effects of kratom in the traditional definition of an opioid, not that it activates the mu opioid receptors. That's a ridiculous point. But that's what he wants to hang his head on, and all cloaked with the credibility he brings to the table. I am Dr. Andrew Kolodny. You know?
Yeah.
Well, I don't know, Dr. Andrew Kolodny. You are like the emperor with no clothes, because it simply doesn't stand up in any way.
It's like, sorry, I'm just not feeling it today, I swear.
I don't know how he could be such a renowned, quote unquote, renowned doctor,
expert.
I don't know. I just don't get that.
Oh, that's what I was going to say. Yeah. So, he was at the 5th Annual International Kratom Symposium in February. He learned everything we learned.
Yeah.
Mac. And he still walked away and still wants to call kratom an opioid. We know why he's doing this. He wants to confuse the mass population on this. He wants to confuse his fellow doctors so that they could prescribe Suboxone.
Well, see, I think it's a multi-layered thing, in my opinion, with Dr. Kolodny. He walked out of the presentation that Dr. Volko provided, and we engaged in a conversation immediately following that presentation. Mm-hmm. And he started telling me his definition of an opioid and all of the signature effects of an opioid addiction, and the kratom delivers that. And I said, did you just not hear what Dr. Volko described as the withdrawal from a kratom dependence, not addiction, because that's what she said. There's a distinct difference, and it's a 10-day to 14-day period, upset stomach, runny nose, and a minor headache. And he said, that's not what she said.
Yes,
I said, well, you must have weird filters on, because that's exactly what she said. And he goes, no, she didn't say that at all. I mean, I sat in the room and I heard it, and I'm thinking, what is he saying? So here's, I think, the issue, and you touched on it, Misty. He spent a good part of his early career, I think in good faith, trying to help people that were opioid addicts. And he worked in his public health agency position in New York City, I think it was. He sent his officers around telling all of the addiction recovery centers to use Suboxone to treat opioid addiction. And there apparently was a $10,000 bounty for every doctor who agreed to do that. That's the report that was done. It'd be interesting to hear all the actual details on that. But that was the report. So he somehow was in that mix of being this great champion of Suboxone as a treatment therapy for opioid addiction. He then, from that, jumped into the policy arena and started advocating for there being a reduction in the amount of opioids that were prescribed by doctors to patients. And suddenly he started to try to balance the need for the patient to have pain relief versus the levels at which it would become obviously an addiction problem. So where he balanced that was, well, my buddies in the Suboxone industry are the one who are supporting me. And so let's get everybody on Suboxone. Let's get them off opioids. So the more you can restrict the amount of actual prescribing medication across the counter, where do people go?
Yeah, I mean, this guy is a quack. He even said during this presentation, everyone's an addict. Yeah. Everyone that takes opioids, even if you take them as prescribed responsibly, you are an addict. Are you kidding me?
I think what you meant was he acts like a quacker. Because it's our opinion that he's a quack. But he then went into the business. And this is the important part. He became a paid advocate for the Suboxone industry. He then became a paid expert witness in opioid trials, overdose deaths against any manufacturer, principally the Sackler family, but any of these deaths that were associated with overprescription of opioids or the misuse of opioids. He made a pretty penny on that. In one particular trial, there's a video of it where he's asked specifically by one of the lawyers in the case, how much did you make on this case? And he couldn't recall exactly. I mean, it was some amount of money. And, you know, when someone says that, they're usually thinking, well, you know, okay, maybe, okay, so what if I made $40,000? Well, he asked him, did you make more than $500,000? He said, well, yeah. And this one case, it was upwards of $1 million in expert witness fees. So think about that. If you're getting paid at that rate to be an expert witness, do you think that you're going to get a second bite at that apple to represent the anti-opioid crowd? If you say, well, there's a leavening factor here, you know, it could go either way. No, he's a full-blown, you know, let's get rid of all opioids and let's punish the people that provided them. So, and then when this is all done and the big trial settled, the Sackler family offers up this settlement fund, then he becomes a consultant to the state and local jurisdictions so they can get more of the money.
The opioid abatement money.
Yeah. I mean, so he keeps biting at this apple over and over again. And guess what's happened today? He's down to the core. There's no more apple to eat. So where does he go for his cash cow? It looks to me like he's going to the kratom industry because he's got trial attorneys who are saying, we need an expert witness that will say X, you know, X being something that is anti-kratom. And so he'll catch.
Is that Kalani at your doorbell?
It's probably Kalani at the doorbell, no question about it. So he's probably saying, Mac, why are you saying this about me?
Why are you telling my business, man? I'm a millionaire.
Yeah, it's my wife's birthday and someone's delivering flowers to her, so
it's
really good.
Mac.
Well, her birthday's tomorrow, but I'm gonna have to check out who her boyfriend is. Her flowers. But I think the issue that we've got here with Kolodny is he's looking to just become that expert, and he wants to carve out the niche space. But he should declare that when he's standing before a legislative body, whether it's in Georgia or in Nassau or Suffolk counties in New York or wherever else he shows up in the future, he needs to say, by the way, I serve as an expert witness, and you know all these things. So it's one of those things that I know he likes to shade it, and he likes to say, you know, I believe in this and it's right, but it's amazing when we have a one-on-one conversation how he scurries for the rat hole, because you can't have an honest discussion with him. When I think I've told everybody this, but I was standing at our event in Washington, and he attended it, the congressional briefing that we had, and he comes up to me afterwards, and he's making the point that every single expert pharmacologist would agree with him that kratom is an opioid.
Mm-hmm.
And Dr. Rahul Gupta was standing next to me, and Rahul was saying, no, that's not accurate, but that wasn't good enough. And so I turned and I said, well, he said, you could ask 100 and they would all agree. So I've already nicked one, right, in the form of Dr. Rahul Gupta. So I saw Jack Hennigelson and I said, Jack, come on over here. And Jack has no context for the conversation. He walks over and I said, Jack, is kratom an opioid? And Jack said, no. Not by chemistry, not by law, and not by plant genetics. And I said to Kolodny, I said, okay, now you're down to 98. How many more do I have to find? Because this is crazy. And then he walked away. He wouldn't hear that anymore. So, you know, he's entitled to his opinion, by the way, but he cannot ride on the platform of being this so-called expert without there being a disclosure about what his self-interest is financially, which is, you know, everybody needs to evaluate. And by the way, I'm not criticizing him for doing that. He just needs to tell what's going on. I mean, he can make whatever money he wants to make, advocate for whatever side he wants to be on, but he at least has a duty to declare, instead of saying, I am the foremost expert, besides Michelle Ross, the foremost expert in the world on kratom. He just can't do that. And so that's, to me, that's the bottom line. And, you know, we're going to continue to have this battle with him. This is not over. He's going to he does want to carve out this space to become this so-called expert witness against kratom consumption, claiming that kratom is causing these deaths when they're alleged. He also gives passing notice to 7-OH being a very powerful opioid, but he says that's not really the problem because it all started with kratom. And that's his shtick right now. So really, it's too bad. He is one of what I have characterized as the charlatans in the anti-kratom industry. And I define that only because these people do not tell the complete truth about, they can have a position and they can be, it could be different than mine. It could be totally anti-kratom, but don't make up your credentials, don't make up your credibility, and do not make up the facts and that you think that you are going to espouse there, because science should be the prevailing leavening factor on all of this.
Just like the 7-OH industry duped so many kratom consumers, Kolodny's duping so many legislators and what the heck, and doctors,
Yes.
And it's sad. It's sad to see. It's like, yeah, I don't have alphabets behind my name, but I have been advocating for over 7 years. I know what I am talking about. I know what I'm feeling. My kratom consumption and how it saved me has matched the science,
But you heard Dr. Kolodny in Suffolk County acknowledge that there are people like you and like me and like thousands of others. They think that they're being helped by kratom.
Yeah.
He said, right? He pats you on the head. He said, but they don't understand. They don't understand how terrible the consequences are. This is part of this narrative that's been developed by the anti-kratom crusaders, and they misstate the science. They bastardize completely the positions that the platforms upon which they stand as being credible, without disclosing all of the issues that are relevant to the discussion. And so we're going to continue to be there to help him. Well, remember, Dr. Kolodny, you were, and then we're going to fill in the gaps for all of these legislators and public policy officials when he tries to pop his head up, and because it's not credible, in my opinion.
And when we hear KDA, after, we'll be at hearings and we're testifying and we'll hear KDA say, sometimes they don't name us, but they'll say the same thing. They think kratom is helping them. But if kratom is helping them, as they say, it should be prescribed by a doctor.
Yes. So and everybody, I cannot imagine or fathom in any way the grief of losing a child. I get that, and they can privately have that grief, and certainly those circumstances are awful. But what has happened is, and we see it at all of these hearings, is that they have determined, along with those that are funding them, that they have the right then to enter a crusade without any accountability. Mm-hmm. And so, they take great offense when we say they're weaponizing their grief. Okay, well, let's call it a different name. You are taking the information provided to you by a medical examiner or coroner that is not complete because they didn't follow a reasonable evaluation or standard for finding out what was the truth. You see the Idaho case where Bonneville County medical examiner had all kinds of evidence sitting right in front of her, where you had prescriptions that Ms. Restucci quit taking. You had prescriptions that appeared to be, and these are for very serious medical conditions that could be life-threatening, but for the medication she was required to take. And they found half-consumed bottles, unclear as to whether they were consumed in excess. Whatever those circumstances were, they should have been a part of the autopsy. Yeah. They should have been recognized as confounding factors for which there is no good explanation, nor is there a good way to reconcile the cause of death against those facts. That pharmacy of prescriptions was present at the death scene. And there was lots to be taken from that should have been, evaluated, but it wasn't. And then you have the Bonneville medical examiner. How could you possibly criticize me? Right. Well, because you didn't do a very good job. That's why we criticize you. And it has tragic consequences because it leaves a family, and the families, according to the report, the family circumstances were complicated. She had left the family home. She was living with her grandmother in a basement, probably not the great monitoring that she might have had she been in the house with her parents. There might have been a better opportunity to intervene. So this was a complicated case. Yet, when it's presented, it's the simplest thing in the world.
Yeah.
Metrogeny
I mean,
and
look at what happened in
intoxication.
Tennessee. That was pretty open and shut when you look at everything, and it
Yeah.
still did not matter.
Right, the
It's like
Matthew
Like
public
what?
Davenport case.
policy.
Yep. And like right now, what we're seeing in Naperville, Illinois, that mayor made a video talking about he got an email from a lady that was addicted to kratom, but Dr. Heidi and her mom and Mike Fasnio and Jim Slurk, they all went up there to testify in Naperville. But now this mayor is wanting people to show up on September 1st to help support him to ban the sale of kratom because of one mom that was addicted. What about all the lives that were saved? Why does our testimonies get thrown in the back with a pile of rubbish, because of one person?
No justification for it. Good public policy deserves to be fully vetted. And I know there's one more that is one of the persistent critics of kratom, Susan Eppert. And you look at the autopsy of her son, that are facts that are clearly evident that were ignored or not evaluated for whatever odd reason, that should have jumped out at that coroner or medical examiner, should have jumped out and said, this is unusual to have this level. And there's some good details on this that show that it's unlikely that kratom had anything to do with the death of that kid. But I get what happens. The family, for however the medical examiner coroner gets to that bottom line conclusion and writes it, it was metrogeny intoxication, or even if they write that it was with multiple substances, the only thing that jumps out, because the trial attorneys are prodding these families, is that there's a paycheck at the end of this thing, there's a lottery ticket, and that's what the trial attorneys want. It's not the truth. It's not what should inform public policy. It's not really helping these families, because they walk away without knowing the truth. And I've said it over and over again, and they say, how could you possibly contest what a coroner says? Well, the case that was filed in Ohio, where two coroners said that it was metrogeny intoxication, and when it came out that they in fact had used the shoddiest of techniques in order to get to that conclusion, it's called a rush to judgment. It's called jumping to conclusions. That's the better description of what happened. And they changed that autopsy report. How many of unchanged autopsy reports out there that would benefit from a lawsuit being filed against them would we then produce to undermine this claim that you have all of these so-called kratom deaths that in fact are anything but? So that it's a mess. There's no question about it.
At the first North Dakota committee meeting, that one representative who's in the medical field is the one who pointed. I knew he was talking about Susan Eppert's son. He pulled up the email that was received, and he called it right then and there. I can't pronounce the names, but it was two of the hyper, the low on sodium and potassium or something like that.
Right.
He called it right then and there. He just glanced at the email right there, live, Yeah. And then opentruth.org did their investigation and pulled that stuff up.
Yeah. Now, everyone needs to know that Cameron Francis called me out 2 days ago because he had confirmed that my daughter Heidi was the author of the Open Truth website. He had it absolutely confirmed. And so I responded back to him and I said, well, there's a couple of problems with that theory. One, I do not have a daughter named Heidi. Secondly, there's no one in my extended family that's named Heidi. So I don't understand where you get that. Now, the whole thrust of his argument that he was making was, you're the one behind this. You're the one that's stoking all this misinformation. You're the terrible person, because we have now definitively tracked back to you for being the author of the Open Truth website. And then his response, after I gave him a pretty detailed response, was, oh, I must have had a bad source. Oh, you can tell something that's a flat out lie And then you, oh, well, I guess I had a bad source. Well, maybe you're also being an idiot. Maybe jumping to that conclusion before you ask, before you get good source information, instead of, I must have had a bad source. Well, guess what? I know that same bad source is the reason that 99% of the nonsense that's up on their websites there. And they'll say, oh, that was a bad source. I mean, it's just.
Where was this going back and forth at?
So there, I'm not allowed to have interactions with the Camerons on these things, but there is this little chat board that somehow I got involved in that Cameron had invited me to, and he calls it the AKA Boys, and that's where these things are happening. I mean, it's
an actual. Oh my God! Really?
Yeah.
Okay. Wow. Okay. It's like
there's only 3 of us in it. I don't have the permission to share the third person. Yeah.
So they created a whole chat board to talk crap about the AKA while you're in it.
Yeah, and by the way, no question about it is that my daughter Heidi produced that site.
News to you, huh?
I guess you got a kid out there you don't know about, Mac.
I must. I have no idea.
Okay, so all right, what we got coming next week? We got North Dakota.
So yes, on Tuesday we've got the hearing for North Dakota, and this is a special session. There are 2 bills that are going to be considered that were referred by the task force. It is my understanding that one of the state senators, who initially was going to have a ban bill proposed at the task force meeting, she removed it and converted it into a regulation bill. Now I'm hearing she's going to come in with an amendment to ban it again. No idea why she's flipping back and forth, but we know that the science doesn't support that, and so we're going to have an array of experts there to tell the truth about it. In the state of Montana, there is an interim committee on law and justice that will consider a regulation bill. We know that the task force or the interim committee on economic development in Montana had recommended by a 6-5 vote a ban bill over a regulation bill. And so now there will be at least 2 bills that will be on the agenda for or at least recommended to the legislature, assuming that on Monday's hearing or Tuesday's hearing, it's September 1st.
Yeah.
That they pass that bill out, which we hope they will. And so we're seeing more of this kind of confusion creep into the discussion. And we're going to see more of it until there is a firm resolution on the federal decision on scheduling 7OH, which is its own set of problems now with the 15-day extension for comments. So it'll be interesting to see how that shakes out. I know that there is a huge push by the 7OH industry, and I'm not talking about those that are duped into signing comments to the Assistant Secretary for Health, who is seeking evidence and data from scientists and researchers, not the personal experience of all this. I mean, it's incomprehensible to me how the 7OH people exploit the people that they are claim that they're serving by getting to do something nonsensical like that only to promote themselves. But they're doing it. But I think that the bigger problem here is that there is a vast infusion of money that's coming in to the Washington influencers by the 7OH people. And we all know that the New York Times exposed the fact that there were contributions made by kratom manufacturers and kava kratom manufacturers, and they called that out. But all of that information was discussed with me by the New York Times reporter, and I gave her all of the information that showed that the 7OH people were spending as much or more. And the only thing that fell out of that was it appeared that the natural kratom leaf products were winning. And so they decided to use that as their launching pad to attack the Trump administration. I don't know what they're going to say when, if and when there is a change to that 7OH policy based on contributions being funded by the 7OH industry. I mean, this is just, it makes no sense, but the reporters don't care. They're just looking for some, attack on the Trump administration going forward here. What I believe, and I still believe it, that science has to prevail, because right now, right at this moment, there is an effort that is being taken on in Washington at the congressional level to clarify all of this, to make sure that the consumers are protected. Forget about protecting these industry people, whether it's on the natural kratom leaf side or the 7OH side. Forget about those people. Science should prevail. Getting a seat at the table and bellying up to the bar to talk to them, everybody's belly's welcome. But for God's sake, let's go to the bottom line of science to dictate what these policies should be. And that's where I hope we end up coming down to, that they'll let science prevail. And remember, the 7OH science was fully described in the original scheduling order. There might be minor tweaks to it that are appropriate to the extent they can find a basis to do so, but you can't move from a 0.005 for the content of 7OH and somehow get to, which would equate to just under 1 milligram, to get to 25 to 35 to 50 milligrams of 7OH. It's what the 7OH people are telling the Washington people they need to have. If they jump to that, that is politics, and we'll have to correct it at a federal KCPA level. But right now, what we're advocating for, depending on what the 7OH rule said, order says, we are going to have a sponsor put in who's agreed to protect the kratom marketplace, put in a federal KCPA that importantly will establish a clear ratio of plant material between metrogene and 7OH, and will carve out the prosecution for simple possession of 7OH. Two important things that we think need to be done. Mm-hmm. So we'll see how that plays out, but it's really going to be contingent on what we hear and see from the federal government, from the DEA, when they announce their final scheduling order on 7OH. And if they make a significant modification to it, that for whatever reason appears to be driven by politics rather than science, then we're going to have to respond to it in that fashion.
I got an update from that, in Gas Station Heroin Act bill, the S5383. It looks like, to me, it looks like they're adding in the scheduling of MGM 15 and 16.
Yeah, these things are all under discussion, all in flux. We're working with members of Congress and with the administration. There's a lot of discussions going on. And this is my opinion. We can't leave this to the states anymore to make these determinations, because there's too much influence that with a group of legislators who would not typically have the time or the expertise, nor are the state agencies equipped to develop the science that's necessary in these areas. So it's going to take a more intense federal regulatory standard encompassed in a Kratom Consumer Protection Act. So that's going to be our focus here in the next 6 months to a year.
I'm ready for it, because we got wore out, Mac. I know it's going to start popping off once again, but this past year there's just a handful of us. Yes, we have people that send in the emails and make the phone calls and all that stuff, which is good. Continue doing that when we ask. But it really takes boots on the ground. It takes attending the virtual testimony, being able to do it that way, because we've seen it, in these hearings. We've seen, like Jen was saying earlier, it's a roller coaster of emotions in some of these hearings, where it's like, oh man, first 45 minutes, we're like, man, they're going to ban it. They're going to ban it. They're going to ban it. But then there's that one person with common sense that's sitting up there, and it flips the entire hearing around.
Right.
Especially after we testify.
Amen.
Yeah.
Amen. Absolutely right.
We do have two comments. One of them's from Tracy. It says, can you please ask Mac about where kratom fits in the FDA? I've been told it's a food And also told it's indeed a dietary supplement. I'm confused.
So it's both. Under the Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act, everything
I'll be back.
is either a food or it's a drug. And there's no, there's no different, there's no distinction that can be made where they cross over. If you are a food, then you are either a conventional food, or you are a dietary supplement, or you are a botanical supplement, or you are a dietary ingredient. And there are different classifications for each under the classification of it being a food. So when you hear people say, oh, well, kratom's not a food, legally it is, but it is not a conventional food. So that's the distinction. The FDA administers the Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act as it is written. They may not like it all the time, but that's the fact of the matter is that it is. So there's another intervening act that supplements the Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act. It's called the Dietary Supplement Health and Education Act. That was passed in 1994. And that established a pathway for dietary supplements and botanical supplements encompassing the non-conventional food area of products. And there is a specific methodology for a new dietary ingredient notification to be filed for a manufacturer of a dietary, botanical, or dietary ingredient to go through a process by which there is an evaluation, not an approval. It is just a pathway for the evidence and data to be presented to the FDA. And the critical part of this is in a 75-day period, sometimes extended for a mutual agreement, but in a 75-day period, the applicant submits their data to the FDA. The FDA evaluates it and gives their letter of objection. And the letter of objection is then evaluated by the manufacturer. There typically are discussions back and forth. And then the company has a decision to make based on those discussions. Do they enter the marketplace, and are they confident enough that they meet the standards required by the DSHEA Act? If they do, they can be on the market. Then the burden for enforcement falls wholly on the FDA. If the FDA has determined after their evaluation that the kratom product does not meet the standards, the safety standards that they've established, then they have the affirmative duty to remove those products, to enforce against them. Now, there has been one instance that I'm aware of where in 2015, the FDA did that. Since then, they've done none of it. So I think there are many kratom manufacturers who've gone through the NDIN process. That's a new dietary ingredient notification process. And there are products that have gone through that process. They're on the market today. And the FDA has not removed them from the marketplace. So it's one of those nuanced kinds of legislative processes that people can easily misunderstand. I hear legislators say it all the time. Well, there's no approved medical or health use. Dr. Awe, Representative Awe in Georgia said it. Well, that's technically true on one side of it, which is there's no medical use, right? Because that requires a new drug application, and one hasn't been filed yet. There is an investigational new drug application filed by NIH on June 1st for purified metrogynine to see if it addresses opioid use disorder, but that's in the early stages and is certainly not close to approval. So it is an absolute fact, and Representative Law was correct that there is no approved medical use for kratom. There wouldn't be unless it is a new drug application. So it is not even a part of the discussion, shouldn't be a part of the discussion. The second question is, there been an approved health risk? And it's technically true. There's no approved health benefit or approval. There is no such thing, but there is a process which I've just described under the DSHEA Act, where a product can be on the market having been fully evaluated by the FDA for its safety profile. And so that's the distinction that needs to be made. So I in retrospect, after I answered Representative Awe, I wrote to her and I told her, I said, this is the description of what I was trying to get across to you, and I probably didn't craft it as elegantly as I should have, because clearly no medical approval, and I said that to her, but there is a health benefit which has been evaluated by the FDA and not objected to in a way that would cause them to take enforcement action. So, but I hear this all the time. There's no approved medical use. That's a criteria in the there are three criteria. I can't remember. One is there's an imminent hazard. This is under the Controlled Substances Act. There's an imminent hazard to the public health. There's no approved. The third one is no approved medical. Oh, the addiction liability.
Yeah.
So the third one is, and there is no approved medical use, right? Well, that's conditional on the first two being met. And so the idea that, and that's why Kratom, that was not a valid criteria when they looked at it for this particular issue about whether there's an approved health benefit or a recognized health benefit on Kratom. So it just doesn't apply, and it's bad language crafting by the Congress. I know it's the only time it's ever happened that they've made a mistake in the Congress, but no
now,
one.
As far as like the NDIN, she's saying for natural kratom powder cover all being sold, but because of the DSHEA Act, there wasn't an NDIN filed for natural kratom powder, correct?
Yeah. So this is an area again that's open to some interpretation. The DSHEA Act said it was passed and enacted on October 1st, 1994. Anything that was in commerce prior to that date in the
was October 15th.
What did I say?
October 1st.
Well, I was wrong. It's October 15th, 1994. Thank you for correcting me. I'm sure that the Kratom gals will have a field day with that.
I thought it was 1995. So
no, it's 1994. So October 15th, 1994, as corrected by Misty, anything in commerce prior to that date was grandfathered in. The FDA has, depending on the circumstance, argued back and forth about that. The standard that they require is very rigid, but there was a court case that was actually settled when I was at HHS that on this issue about what are recognized uses of a substance, and the court said anything around the world is included if you can have good evidence. And when this issue was being debated on a specific Kratom product, the former general counsel at the FDA, who has since gone into private practice, his name was Peter Hutt, he told me that this particular applicant that was going through the NDIN process for a extracted product had an ironclad case based on the affidavits of use prior to 1994 from around the world and in the United States. Now, where that application was objected to was the formulation of the product, but no objection that I'm aware of that the FDA said, oh, well, natural kratom leaf powder wasn't involved in the United States, because it was, and they all know it. So, and there's even a document that shows that the FDA got interested in kratom in the early 1990s when they saw smoke shops starting to adjust for natural kratom leaf products to enhance them. And that was something an FDA document. So anyway, these are complicated issues, and depending on where you sit at the time that you are making your argument, people of good faith can argue back and forth. But was kratom in the United States in commerce prior to 1994? Absolutely. And did it therefore get classified as grandfathered in as natural kratom leaf product? Absolutely. Are chemically manipulated 7-OH products covered? No. Are extracts, are they covered? Probably not, unless they go through that NDIN process. So, this is just one of those things that have to be dealt with on a case-by-case basis. But the premise of kratom being, covered under the DSHEA Act, I think, is pretty clear that natural kratom leaf powder is recognized as being in commerce prior to that date.
Did you walk the Champs floor?
I did.
What did the booths look like?
So a significant reduction in the number of 7-OH booths. There was, in the last show, 179 I counted, just looking at their map. I'm guessing that there might have been a dozen this time, so very significantly fewer. There were a increased number of kratom booths, I think, from the last show, natural kratom leaf booths. There was a huge number of new products, and they were called the replacement for 7-OH. And I stopped and asked at a couple of booths, what, and the problem is I was wearing my American Kratom Association shirt, so I didn't get a lot of good reception. But I asked, what are the contents of these new products? And they're calling them proprietary blends.
Yep.
Okay. What does your label say is in it? And only one would show me their label, and it said a proprietary blend. That doesn't conform with the federal law. You have to say what's in that proprietary blend. So what is it? And what I'm hearing is that these are very powerful industrial grade solvent, chemically manipulated products coming in from China. And that's going to be the replacement for 7-OH. It tells you a little bit about this industry, doesn't it?
Yes.
Because they're not really pursuing what they tell the 7-OH consumers, that they're just trying to protect their health and well-being and give them a more potent product for therapeutic benefits. This is about making the almighty dollar. And they've got another more dangerous product coming on the marketplace, and they rest easy, because we'll just drive you all over to this proprietary blend opioid. Do that. And anybody that can justify that, and I mean anybody, I don't care whether it's a 7-OH gals or it's these libertarians in the form of Hamilton and these other people. Give me a break. There's a line that has to be drawn.
Yeah.
And that's why we have these laws. And the idea that they just jump from one to another and get to the more potent kind of product is ridiculous. Now, I hear the argument, another talking point that has now been picked up by some of these bright lights in the anti-kratom pro 7-OH group, where they're saying, oh, everything's going to get banned because they're an analog. They do not know what they're talking about. The Analog Act has a very specific criteria for being evaluated, and it requires 3 pillars. You have to meet all 3 pillars. And I'm telling you that the nonsense that they're being peddled by the 7-OH masterminds is they're idiots. And yet these, in good faith, some of these advocates are picking it up and repeating it in their anti-kratom rants. Really unfortunate, but they don't know what they're talking about. These are complex issues that require both a careful legal analysis and a careful chemistry analysis of what we're dealing with. And the idea that you're going to defend a product is just amazing. I did an interview with Hamilton and Soren Shade. Well, Hamilton was the primary interviewer at the Champ Show. And the part that gets ignored consistently is, how did these products get on the market in the first place?
Exactly.
They're defending the libertarian view that you can't take these products away from people. Well, how did they get here? And they got here because you have people like Vince Sanders and the other 7-OH manufacturers who are white labeling all their products, and they're out there, and they are chemically manipulated opioids. And Hamilton said to me, well, he said to me, it's silly that you are characterizing the production of 7-OH by calling it high concentrated chlorine with baking soda, like you used to shock your backyard pool. This is the same criticism that the bright light Madeline Sklar used to criticize me, saying, how could you say that? And he said the same thing. How could you say that? That seems so simplistic. Well, I said, you should ask Vince Sanders, because that's the response he gave to a newspaper reporter, or I'm sorry, a television reporter, when she asked him. And he answered, and he said, well, it's high concentrated chlorine with baking soda, like you used to shock your backyard pool, trying to make it normal. I said, Hamilton, I don't drink my backyard pool water. I don't have a backyard pool, but I don't drink it. And it's like they all throw up their hands and say, well, you're the one that's wrong. How can I be the one that's wrong when it's your guy that said it, and you're now calling it simplistic? And then I tell you he did it. And well, okay, well then we're going to cover that up. We don't want to talk about that anymore. That's where we are, unfortunately, in this debate, because you've got an impassioned group of people that are willing to say anything to justify what they're doing. And even when you get caught red-handed with it, you just say, well, let's talk about something else. We don't want to talk about the thing that I was wrong on.
I read that article about Vince Sanders having to throw away $10 million of products for pseudodoxil. And I'm sitting here thinking, and then he said that wasn't even at retail value. That's not what, it was just $10 million of product. And first of all, how much would the retail value have been? Like 30 million?
Oh, I don't know. Does anyone believe that Vince Sanders is going to give you a good number?
No.
But that makes me think, how much of his supposed 7-OH only products were just 7-OH? You know, how much pseudodoxil might have actually been in those 7-OH products, and you had no idea.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the analysis by the DEA, where they said that I think the number was 71% of the products that were 7-OH products that were evaluated by the DEA contained pseudodoxil and MGM 15 and 16. That tells you there's a serious manufacturing problem. And remember when Vince got caught, where some lab did an analysis of his product, which was supposed to be 7.5 milligrams of 7-OH.
Yes.
There were 32 plus milligrams. And the hard part for him was that, and this was highlighted on the John Oliver show, the hard part for him was that he was the one saying that we have very high quality standards for our manufacturing facilities. Well, I don't think you miss 7.5 up to over 30 as being a minor problem. I think that's a major problem. It's over 4 times what the record or what the stated metrogeny levels were. This is going to come down to, in my opinion, a serious discussion about how we control this outrageous behavior in this industry by these charlatans who just want to ring the cash register rather than protect consumer safety. And they've hooked a whole substantial number, hundreds of thousands, if not a million people on this trash that they're producing. And those people are now crying. And look at their comments. It's tragic.
Yeah.
To X. Everything, every single thing that the 7-OH manufacturers peddle is their therapeutic benefit of their opioid. That's the fact of the matter is. And then you get them saying, you get the 7-OH people saying, well, let's just sell it in smoke shops. Let's take it out of convenience stores and gas stations and any other outlet unless it's a smoke shop. Now, they know what that means because the drug seekers who are desperate for this kind of an opioid product are going to go to the smoke shops, and the stigma of going into a smoke shop for the average Kratom consumer, that's too much. And they know it. They want that economic advantage, and they act like, oh, we're trying to protect consumers. They are doing anything but. They're trying to protect the cash register for the 7-OH manufacturers, and that's why it undermines completely their credibility on these issues.
I shared this yesterday because the CBD American Shaman, they're being sued in multiple states for allegedly selling illegal marijuana and THC as legal hemp.
Yeah, I don't.
So that just shows you the projection that Vince goes.
Yeah,
he dips his toes in this product. Makes his millions, billions probably. Dips his toes in the next product. He don't fall for that line. Don't fall for that line. He cares about you. Don't.
Right. Yeah.
Selling them in a smoke shop, dispensary, or online, even blessed by a priest, wouldn't change their chemical cleanliness.
This is about the natural kratom leaf consumers who use kratom for one of the 3 things that Dr. Oliver Grunman identified in his consumer survey. First, of those group that use it, and at the time he thinks that they fell into 3 relatively equal buckets. First were people using it as a replacement for a cup of coffee in the morning, gave an increased boost of energy, increased focus. Second group were people that were struggling with anxiety or depression, gave them a mood elevation. And then third, again, serving size dependent, the third were that category with people that are struggling with acute and chronic pain. And a subgroup of that were people getting off of opioids. Now, that's the group that gets all the attention. And that's the group that comes to testify at hearings largely because they have a benefit that they're experiencing from the consumption of natural kratom leaf products. We don't hear the people that say, hey, okay, I'll go back to coffee. I mean, it's no big deal to me. They're not going to come and testify at these hearings, but yet they're a large part of the consumer population of natural kratom leaf products, and it speaks to its safety as opposed to these 7-OH products, which obviously have no scientific evidence on the safety of the products other than what Vince Sanders says is we let consumers be our safety signal.
Yeah. Guinea pigs.
I'm sorry, guinea pigs, right. So, I mean, it's astounding how detached from reality these people are when someone like Vince Sanders, who's a leader in the industry, says something that inane that, I just let them, that's not what the law says. And that's not what common sense says. You just don't have this kind of a process where you concoct whatever you want and then you throw it out in the marketplace and you say, well, how many people died today? Well, I better not do that anymore. They'll go to something new. And that's sort of where they are. And they still to this day make the point that there's not a single death from 7-OH. That's nonsense. I mean, you see, I agree they should apply the same rigorous standard I've said to the autopsy reports, but to suggest that no one's died from 7-OH, given the scientific data that's been evaluated and reported, I think there's a sufficient safety signal that they need to look hard at this, and they have, and they've determined they're not going to let, as then FDA Commissioner McCary said, we're not going to get caught flat-footed again like we did with the opioid crisis.
What is he doing now?
I don't know. I haven't.
It's like he fell off.
Well, I'm sure he's doing well. He's a doctor. He was with Johns Hopkins University. I don't know where he is right now.
Maybe he's taking a break.
Yeah,
he might be. I'm sure there's lots of speaking opportunities and lots of book deals and that kind of thing that can happen. So I don't know the answer, but
you should do a follow-up.
I will. I will check to see where Dr. McCary is.
Yeah.
Do you have any updates on Illinois as far as like any hints of the governor or anybody else pursuing an emergency temporary ban?
So
like
we've been
Massachusetts.
We've been trying to pulse out the governor's office in Illinois. They have gone silent on the issue. The preliminary inquiry was responded to saying there's no plan by the governor to promote a ban on kratom in the state of Illinois. But we're following up. Obviously, the legislature has bills that they've been considering, and hopefully we'll get to a KCPA in Illinois this coming session.
Man, it's just you know, like I said, you know, the anti folks, you know, the 7-OH folks as well. Y'all might be, you know, you can drag us down all you want. You could tire us out. You could exhaust us, but we will take a step back and take our little breaks that we do, and we will continue putting one foot in front of the other, and we will continue to save kratom. You know, whether these 7-OHers believe it or not, we are out here trying to save kratom. For one, so you have something to fall back on when your 7-OH gets scheduled. Are we expecting a thank you? Hell no. No, you ain't got to thank us. It's what advocates do.
Yeah, see, this is the unfortunate thing, that the misplaced direction of the 7-OH people. They're blaming AKA and Matt Caddo for all this problem, instead of blaming the people that put these bad products on the market in the first place, holding them accountable. And why aren't they out there saying, okay, we're willing to be responsible. We will no longer allow these people to be selling 300 milligram 7-OH tablets. But they're not doing that because that's where their money comes from, right? And then you hear this, what I consider to be completely unaccountable, where someone like Amanda Rayner, who's one of the chief co-hosts on the Kratom Gals, I've got copies of the screenshots. We need to get rid of Matt Caddo. See, they think I'm the enemy. And instead of saying we need to get rid of Vince Sanders and we need to get rid of Matt Schwerman, who put us in this position, because and Jeff Smith, they put us in this position. Why? But see, that's not what they want. And this is the interesting misdirection. I love this. Last night, Amanda Rayner came out and started saying to me that she does not work for a 7-OH manufacturer. That's what she said. She works for a botanical supplement company.
Huh.
So you see that little misdirection. This is the misdirection, right? And she, in fact, I can pull it up and I'll just read it so I don't get it completely wrong. I was on the plane last night when I was doing this, but she says,
I don't never do the Wi-Fi on the plane. You must sign in for that.
He has to.
Yeah. Anyway, she I can't find it right now, but she essentially said that she doesn't work for a 7-OH company. Of course she does. They sell 7-OH products. They may sell other products. I get that. But to see the misdirection. I don't work for a 7-OH manufacturer, so don't tag me with 7-OH, even though she's in the customer service department. And then you get Madeline Sklar saying, I don't take any money. Matt Caddo saying that I get money from what I do in my advocacy on the Kratom Gals. That's just wrong. And then when I point out to her that, I don't know, I have multiple people in the Kratom industry telling me that she has asked them for money in order to promote their products, she then says, Oh, yeah. Well, there's a difference between my taking money and having an affiliate marketing agreement. Well, I don't know. The money shows up at the cash register, still green, still rings the cash register. And here's the great part. All of her co-hosts sit there and nod. You're right. You're right, Madeline. You can do anything you want in order to earn money. But they were also the same ones saying, yeah, you're right, Madeline. You don't take money. So the can't have it both ways. But the bottom line here is that somebody has to be accountable at the bottom line at the end, right? And Madeline Sklar has to be accountable. Robin Graham has to be accountable. The other thing that Madeline, I'm sorry, not Madeline, Amanda Rayner said was, let's all support. And then she said Kratom Gals, she said 70H, and she said Robin Graham's BAE organization, the one that isn't for 70H. I mean, these people are all over the map and at the end of the day, we can only be judged by our credibility. And there are people that readily attack the American Kratom Association because we accept money from vendors. And we do, for those vendors who are willing to accept a regulatory framework that will hold them accountable. Strict regulations. We don't accept money from any of these companies, of which there are probably 6,000 in the United States, that aren't willing to accept these regulations. I get hounded constantly by those people saying, you're being too tough on us, that, just let us be what we're going to be. And we don't. And yet nowhere on the 708 side is there any of that kind of accountability. So
exactly.
That's just the hypocrisy of what they do. And, and this is what I resolved. Every time that Amanda Rayner and Madeline Sklar say we should get rid of Matt Caddo, every time they say it, I'm going to stay another year, just so they know. If they want to continue this battle, I'm all in for it, because it's nothing that infuriates me more than someone trying to misdirect from their own failings in order to shift them off on someone else. And they sat. I watched the episode where they were watching the presentation that I made in Georgia, where I stood up for natural kratom leaf consumers.
And you did a fine, good job.
Yes, sir.
Not according to them. They were appalled. Do you see that? And what a horrible representation for the kratom industry. Now, here's something that's true. I am not perfect. I made the decision that I had to fight Representative Townsend, who has lied consistently. This is the guy, when asked by the chairman of the Judicial Subcommittee what the major points of his substitute bill were, he failed to tell them a whole host of things that would have banned kratom. I stand up for kratom. I may not be perfect, but I'll tell you who wasn't there: Robin Graham, Amanda Rayner, Madeline Sklar. Now, she'll show up if there's a camera, and you can show me up on walking the halls of Capitol. Hardly the benchmark of activism, but they'll all play that game. And then they'll act all offended. How can you say that I'm not the premier advocate in America? We said it before, that you get Madeline Sklar saying it is critically important that if you live in a state, your voice has proportionally more impact. I'm saying it much better than she did, by the way. Proportionally more impact if you go and testify. Because you're in state. That's what she said. And while she's saying it, Robin Graham is nodding her head, along with the rest of them, all in sync, nodding her head. Has Robin Graham showed up at a single hearing in Montana where she lives? No. And yet they'll all sit there and say, oh, well, people should go advocate. These people are, in my opinion, complete and total hypocrites to be what they are, irrelevant to this discussion anymore. And I'm done with them. I mean, this is the kind of nonsense where they play their games. And then the last thing I'll say about it, they're saying that they did not ban me from commenting on their YouTube video. Well, and somebody correctly pointed out, you can't ban someone, at least they say you can't, on YouTube. But what you can do is you can block them for 24 hours. Yeah, so during the podcast, I am just giving comments. They weren't inflammatory, just differing viewpoints. And I was entering into a discussion with a couple of people that were commenting on their podcast what was going on. And Matt, I wasn't talking about, I don't recall that I was talking specifically about anything was being said by one individual or another. It was just the tone of the conversation and the subject of the conversation. And she blocked me from making comments for 24 hours. I don't think their show lasts 24 hours. So I think when you're blocked for 24 hours, you're blocked, right? So they play these silly semantic games. Their antics, they're fundamentally unwilling to tell the truth about, whether or not they're funded. Now we're playing these silly games of, well, I'm not funded by anybody, but I do have a marketing affiliate agreement with people. I'm not funded by 70H. I'm not funded by Natural Kratom people, but I do have a marketing affiliate agreement where I receive, well, I don't know, money. I don't understand the distinction between those things. So how can I trust anything that's being said from the crowd? I can't. I don't think anyone else should. And by the way, I'm willing to go on. I'm willing to go on their podcast. I've told them over and over again, I'm willing to invite them to come on. Oh yeah,
that'll never happen.
They're not doing it. They say, because we're not a debate society. I have one of their promos that says we debate these things. But that's only convenient when they want to say that. And I've invited them. Let's have a webinar. And that is an open invitation. All of them can come on, gang up on me. I don't care, because there's one thing I will bring to the table, and that's the truth. And they will bring all of their spun up, oh, well, let's get rid of Matt Caddo, and we're not taking any money, and we're not advocates for 70H, even though they all say they are now. And we're not advocates for 70H, but I'm on their advocacy webinars. I mean, it's just it's amazing to me.
We're aware that she made a video and clipped up our last live stream in it. We're not going to respond to you. We're going to take the higher road.
Yeah.
I'm not going to play this game with you. There are reasons why Jen and I walked away from you last year in May.
Right.
We cannot force other people to see our reasons why. But if anything they say or do make your head turn sideways, red flag.
Right.
Don't allow those red flags to pile up like we did.
Exactly.
And here's the best example in the world of how you can take and clip videos in order to make it seem like something that's entirely different than was actually said. On February 14th, one of the things that I took objection to was when Robin Graham made the point that advocates simply weren't showing up anymore. There was this malaise out there that they weren't showing up at these hearings. And then she said, unequivocally said, the solution is you people need to get off your butts, right? So I called her out on it. Not only the fact that she's not been out there doing anything, but the advocates are showing up. There are times when the hearings are scheduled at times that don't work for people that have jobs. There are other variables in this, but largely people are showing up for these hearings. And then Madeline, who must have burned through 3 or 4 editing machines, tried to clip that and splice it in a way to make it seem like it was something entirely different than what it was said. And all anyone has to do is go to that February 14th episode of their group, and you would have to crowd out all the 70H supporters, because that's who they claim they've got this spike in supporters. Well, it's all 70H people, but listen to the 10 minutes before and 5 minutes after, and you tell me that there is any context that I missed on this, because Robin Graham was openly criticizing advocates in the United States for failing to show up, and she said, get off your butts. And all I said was, okay, if it's good for the goose, good for the gander, Robin, get off your butt and show up in Montana, which you fail to do consistently.
I don't know why or actually when that Robin and them left the AKA, but why did you go dark? You went dark for years before you came out with this BAE website. Imagine how many hearings that we could have saved if you would have stayed on your butt to advocate. Why did you disappear?
All I'm going to say about the entire thing, about the whole video clip and the whole back and forth with Madeline, is there are some people that were born to be attention whores, and they don't care whether the attention is good or bad, just as long as they're getting it. And I refuse to feed into it.
It's that mentality of all press is good press, and I'm not going to play your game. Yeah. I'm not going to do it. You know, if anybody wants to, ask questions outside of, video or what have you all. And, I'm always going to tell the truth. No matter what, I'm always going to tell the truth.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I lied for 11 years in active addiction, but if anybody wants to question why Jen and I left or anything, I'll tell you, but there's multiple freaking reasons why we left. And thank God we did at that time, because look at the direction she went.
Know. Ugh.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
And what do they do? What do they do? We need to get rid of Mac. They make me, instead of the issue. If they wanted to discuss the issues, great. Let's have that honest, open, free-flowing discussion instead of this, oh, Mac's a bad guy and he's a terrible person, the AK is terrible, and all they're doing is trying to tear down the AK and me in order to climb up on our backs, and that's just not a good formula.
You know what, Mac, I hope you always have had a reason to go after somebody in the community, whether they are vendors or advocates. You always had a reason. And I know that even when Jen and I were involved with them, you were secretly watching everything behind the scenes anyway. That's what you do. You pay attention to what's going on in the community. So whenever you finally threw off your gloves and was like, you know what, screw this. You had there was multiple levels to when you finally threw your gloves off and said, okay, that's it. I got to finally speak on this.
Yeah.
It wasn't just one episode that made you just, it wasn't just one episode that happened.
Well, and I think it's fair to say that there are some participants on that show that are really good people. I may not agree with them, by the way, but they don't make it personal. They don't, they're not nasty about it. It's certain people on there that have done it, and that's the way they're going to be, and there's no changing them. But I said it on our last show, and I've since dug in deeper. Sarah and Dan Pitta, their website is like absolutely fantastic.
It is amazing.
I don't agree with their position on 7OH, but they don't make it personal. They don't make it offensive. I'm not going to make it personal offensive either. We just happen to have a disagreement about it. And ultimately, that'll all be resolved by policymakers and by scientists. And we can then glean opinions from it. And I'm a big believer that there are sometimes when scientists take data and they make an interpretation of the data that is up for discussion. But sometimes the scientific data isn't. But I think that those two, their husband and wife team, they've got a Kratom business. They've made a phenomenal impact. And Sarah's a co-host on it. Fine. And I wish they would follow her leadership in the way that she conducts herself and the way her husband conducts himself, rather than this attack politics that they decided is their mantra, all because of this underlying money draw, which is certainly the manufacturer that, the botanical supplement manufacturer that Amanda works for, and the marketing affiliate program that Madeline's getting money from. I know that's tough to overcome, but you have to. And in this case, it's the consequences are too important. So again, there are a couple of people on there that I think have real issues that they need to get over, and that would be obviously Amanda and Robin and Madeline. But the others are nice people, and we just have a different opinion, and we certainly don't make it as personal as. And some have gotten drawn into it occasionally, but it's not their fundamental focus. So it's good for them.
And like I said, throughout this over a year now, when Jen and I left, we could have made multiple videos and kept stirring the drama pot and got the likes and views that you are so desperately addicted to. Desperately. That is your MO. And we could have done that.
All that. Yeah.
We could have done that. We're not,
What I'd like to focus on, you hear the testimonies of the Kratom advocates who tell their stories about how Kratom has helped them. Those are the voices that need to be heard. And you heard them in Georgia last week.
Mm-hmm.
You will hear them in North Dakota. You will hear them in Montana. These are important counter messaging voices than you hear from the KDA, who are highly organized. The money's being infused into those groups by the trial lawyers and by the Suboxone people, whatever that source of funding is. And so it is more important today that we let those voices get elevated to be heard rather than this nonsense that's being peddled by the 7-OH community and their surrogates. And so that's what I think that we have to keep our eye on the ball here and keep promoting what are legitimate testimonials about the value that Kratom has played in the lives of real people in order to offset this KDA crowd and the Andrew Kolodny crowd. We just need to stay focused on that kind of a messaging platform that really resonates.
Yeah, it's why, I've done this for years. I've always watched the hearings. It wasn't until like the last couple of years till we realized that you can remote testify. But that's what we've always done, is clipped up the testimonies. We'll live stream and or record these hearings, and whenever we see that we can publicly do that, that's when we push it out. I want people to see. I want to accidentally inspire somebody to advocate. That's been one of my goals. Not only using my platforms to tell my firsthand experience with Kratom, it's to help somebody be like, oh, wait, I want to go up to that podium. My testimony matters. My testimony can make a difference.
Amen. Amen.
And this is right here. I have to say real quick, because that's another thing I see in the comments all the time whenever it gets brought up. But it's like, there's been a couple years where they could have self-regulated or tried to self-regulate and tell these people to stop making these perks and all that. And instead, all I ever hear or see anybody say is, well, we just don't support that.
Yeah.
We're just not going to buy from them. It's
right.
like,
Yeah,
well,
right.
Somebody should have done something about it to make them stop doing that.
Nobody was policing. Nobody's
No.
policing the 7-OH industry. And it's like they
it's just crazy to me. It's like, there's just so many things that the industry could have done to at least try and clean it up. And they had no intentions of doing that.
Yeah.
No, they absolutely don't. And that's the problem. We're in this mess we're in largely because of the failure of this self-policing. We at the AKA, I've said it over and over again, we've turned over more than 130 companies to the FDA for their failure to adhere to federal standards for marketing. And I hear the lip service, adhering is, we don't agree with that. Show me one complaint letter to the AKA reporting on the company for making those illegal therapeutic claims or for marketing inappropriately or the improper attraction, the advertising attracting kids. Show me that. They give lip service where it doesn't mean anything, and they never do anything about it. And that's tragic.
Dollar signs is all they see. Yes, indeed.
That's right.
Money is an addiction. It truly is. Even when I was in active addiction, and I was the user and the drug dealer as well. You get, not only was I hooked on the substance, you get hooked on making the next buy or the next sale.
Yep, absolutely.
Mike, no, there's no Zoom option for this one. This is the last and final public testimony in North Dakota on Tuesday. So people need to show up in person. I am trying my hardest to find people to get there, because
anybody watching this from North Dakota?
Yeah, this is the last time to show up to give public testimony. And then on September 2nd is when they vote, right?
That's correct. They're going to vote on whatever the bills that are recommended out of that committee hearing on that first day.
Oh my gosh.
Does anybody? I don't have any other things penned. Do you have any other questions for Mac?
Are you still good on time, Mac?
Yeah, I've got 12 more minutes.
Okay. All because of 708, you guys. I have never, in my over 7 years of advocacy, I've never had to attend this many hearings.
I mean, it's bad. It's really bad. It's bad to see. It's bad to see, like, just the hateful stuff out there too, the hateful comments that I've seen on social media. Oh, how was the lawsuit in Massachusetts?
So the part of the process of filing a lawsuit is that you file with a court, and then there's a delivery of a summons called service, and the Department of Health said as of yesterday, yesterday, they hadn't received it yet. I've not seen the documents. They know it's filed. They know what it says. They just haven't gotten summons yet served to them. So I expect that will be cured by Monday. We'll know, unless they're dodging service, which I don't think they will. There's no reason for them to dodge it. So we'll see what happens. Then we hope that will precipitate a hearing for the TRO with the judge, and that will allow for a discussion to be ensued as to whether we can resolve this, much like we did in Florida, much like we did in Ohio. So hopefully that'll happen.
TRO means temporary restraining order.
Thank you. You're absolutely right.
Can you ask? Oh, wait. When is PA voting on their KCPA?
Well, that's up in the air. They haven't scheduled it for a floor vote. We're still getting the final tweaks to the language, but it should be this fall, obviously, that we want to get it done, and we're hopeful that'll happen.
Okay, can you ask Mac what can be done in New York? New York is going like crazy, Mac. It is like it's turning into Massachusetts, and they're all copy and pasting each other's ordinance. It's saying unless it's FDA approved. Right,
and we're doing everything we can in conjunction with the other advocacy groups to fight these things. We just need boots on the ground, continue to fight back, and hopefully we'll get somebody to turn back this nonsense and have a more rational view. But this is tough.
That's the other crap I want to throw in there is, you see 708ers say that they're trying to save Kratom too. Where's Hart and 7-Up? They're not attending these hearings to try to save Kratom at all. No, they're not. Don't give me that crap.
Right. It's crazy.
There are vendors that send out alerts. I love it when vendors send out advocacy alerts. That right there makes me want to buy from you.
Yeah. Yeah, we're grateful for them, and more are starting to do it. We've been encouraging it. I think it's great that they're now engaging in the fight, because remember, back in 2016, there was a lot less emphasis on emails and phone calls. It was vendors literally encouraging people at their cash registers to say, you need to make these calls and send these emails. It wasn't driven from the organization, AKA, as much as it was from the vendors. So returning to that would be very, very significant.
Yeah. That way, like whenever there's a hot spot, there should be like a stack of flyers that the AK could send out, and then people go like what we did in 2021 when the World Health Organization did their thing. You guys had a flyer that you sent out the link. I took it to Staples or one of them Office Depots or something, and I even did the colorful ones because I love the colorful
that's what I did here in Tennessee too.
So I took it to all the different smoke shops. I asked them, could you put this right here in your window or right here by the cash register? Because it had y'all's QR code for people to scan it and fill out the info for the World Health Organization.
That was the good old days before 708. When I went around here to Tennessee, they're like, for selling 708.
Like, you're cock blocking my money, lady.
You want natural leaf saved?
What about getting the governor to sign the 708 ban that was passed in New York? Yeah, we know that there's that bill that's sitting on Governor Hochul, however you say her name, desk now.
We're talking to her office right now. We got a good lobbying team up there. We're pushing hard to close the door in as many states as we can on these 708 masqueraders, the people that call themselves Kratom, advanced Kratom alkaloids, even to this day. These are the people that the 708 crowd are just trying to deceive, and we're going to keep fighting on that.
I saw a comment the other day that said, not one person has called it kratom.
Yeah, that was yesterday in our live.
You kidding me?
Yeah.
Advanced kratom alkaloids. That's what Vince Sanders said on his package for until just about 6 months ago. Craziness. Yeah.
It came onto the market calling himself kratom, you know? There was some, and I didn't want to name them. I didn't want to name it because we did our live stream yesterday with Jordan on TikTok. And I don't want to name the products because I don't want to look like I'm doing like reverse promotion.
Yeah.
We get people that try to do that stuff, try to think they slick. I've been in this social media advocacy game for a long time, and I see some crap.
Yeah.
Did he answer the pin comments that you had?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Anybody else got any more questions while we got Mr. Mac Haddo, the one and only? I hope you have a fabulous successor, Mac. I really do, because I know that you get hit from all different angles. Does it cause you stress?
How could it not?
Well,
I know.
Well, no, it's disappointing, no question. But if people think that it's going to discourage me, I was kidding a little bit earlier that I would add, a year every time they say that I should be tossed out. I really don't want to do that, but it's not helping their cause to keep calling me names and saying that I was responsible for all these terrible things, shifting blame away from themselves, obviously. But we're actively working on building out the AK's future. Because in the same way, when we get the plant protected, we're going to need to do things in the future, and it's going to be beyond my lifespan. We're going to have a structure in place that carries on.
Okay, good. Well, I mean, even if you don't live a year longer, you can always haunt them.
Oh my gosh, he is going to live forever, just like my father-in-law. I've said this a million times.
I think I told you I went through my physical and others some minor issues. I'm in great health, which is great.
See?
And I've always said that I'm willing to keep fighting here as long as my health holds up. So I think I'm in good shape.
How was your ablation?
Oh man, this was better than I thought it was going to be. I mean, I going into it, I had descriptions from the doctor about what they have to tell you what the potential downsides were, and maybe those happen occasionally to people. It was a relatively short procedure. I mean, the only thing I felt were a couple of the anesthesia pinpricks.
Yeah,
but it was short, and they said that I would start feeling the positive effects of it in a month. 2 days later, I'm feeling like 90% better. I mean, I was having real trouble getting around. And now I'm feeling great. So, and if it keeps getting better, like they said in a month, and then they said in 3 months, you'll be like feeling top of your game. So the only thing I haven't tried yet is going back to playing golf, which I intend to do, because that was really hanging me up. But what it's done is it's given me renewed strength to go and fight the battle with all these naysayers. So brace up.
Yeah, I do have one more thing here. Tracy Mike says, Kratom Gals earlier from a week ago said Mac was for 7-0 at one point. Is that true, and what changed? Mac, would you like to explain that?
I would certainly like to explain that. The premise of their statement is a flat out, complete, total lie. And I don't know, what does Madeline always say? Show me the receipts. Their receipts are when we started discussing in 2019 that 7-OH, and this, by the way, was tied into what Jack Henningfield had done. And Jack Henningfield had all in his 8-factor analysis in 2016, and then again in 2018, both said, in both 8 factors, he said that 7-OH in its naturally occurring level contributes to the benefits of kratom. I have said that. I have never said that I'm for a chemically manipulated and altered 7-OH product that is an opioid. I've never said that. And anyone who wants to say that, show me the receipts. Madeline, Amanda, pony up. Let's have that webinar where you can give your grand expose on me, and I'll host it. Show me where I've ever said that 7-OH opioids should be accessible to consumers. Never said it. they are misleading people when they say it. They're lying to people when they say that I said it. And so it'll be an interesting disclosure. Now I've thrown the gauntlet down. Let's let them do a whole 2-hour segment on here's the videos and the real statements that Mac made about 7-OH being in its chemically manipulated opioid form being a good thing, because it never happened.
Madeline, if you clip this video up, my name is Misty Brown, and I've been a loud and proud kratom advocate for over 7 years. Mr. Brown,
follow us over on Advocacy in Action 2019.
Yeah, exactly.
So I reminded people yesterday on Friday in the when did I do it? Thursday.
Yesterday.
Presentation, whatever day it was, Thursday.
Wait, no, it was Thursday.
At the Champ Show, my father-in-law, who was a World War II paratrooper, and told me in a really interesting circumstance, told me stories about his career in the military that even other family members hadn't heard. And just because of a circumstance we were in, because I took him to the hospital and he was in abject pain and from a cancer condition that he had. And when he got in to be triaged by the emergency room nurse, the nurse said, on a scale of 1 to 10, your pain being the worst 10 that you've ever felt, down to 1. And I had carried him into the hospital, literally, because he couldn't stand or walk. And he sat there and thought for a minute, and he said 4. And we immediately got sent out to the waiting room with all the sick kids. They're coughing and sneezing out there in the emergency room. And I said, Dad, what in the world could be worse than what you're going through right now? And he started telling me these stories. He got shot as a paratrooper landing in Holland. And when he landed, he cut his chute and he crawled under a haystack. And for 3 days, he laid there with his wounds getting infected. And a friendly farmer found him, and they were able to get him some medical treatment and get him out of Holland through their underground railroad. And he then told me some other stories. And so that accounted for why he thought that pain level was lower than. But so I said, sort of the culmination of this discussion, I said, Dad, based on what you've told me, what's your best advice for when you're in battle? He said, make sure that the people that are in your foxhole are going to have your back, And when I look at where we are today in this battle, and it's truly a battle, who do I want in my foxhole? I can tell you clearly who I do not. And I can tell you that the two of you are right there, because this is a battle for protecting access to natural kratom leaf products. And we can't leave it to chance. We can't leave it to these naysayers or the middle grounders that say, well, I can see both sides of it. There's no both sides of this. No. This is going to be a battle royale, and we've got to stand up, and we want to make sure that our foxhole has only the good people in it that are going to fight the way we need to. So I'm proud to be with you guys in the foxhole.
Well, apparently
no more Mr. Nice Guy, no more getting stepped around on. Just like in Georgia, it was time to stand up.
Yeah.
Absolutely was.
You did fabulous in Georgia. I don't care what anybody says. They would not put your shoes on in 1 minute.
No, they sure the heck won't.
I value the two of your opinions. I do. But my wife, who rarely gets involved in this stuff, she watched it, and she told me I did a great job. And I value that opinion more than most.
Yeah.
Because
as you should.
My biggest critic. She's my biggest critic on things like this. So she said, you did a great job shoving it to them, and they deserved it. So,
have you heard anything from the complaint you filed?
No, not officially. We've had some discussions wanting more details, which we have been glad to provide because they are not favorable to Chairman Townsend. But more important, the discussions that we've had follow up with the committee members, I can tell you with certainty there will be no recommendation from this committee for there to be a ban on kratom. I can tell you with certainty there will not be a recommendation that will be put behind the pharmacy counter. And I can tell you with certainty there's not going to be any recommendation that the enforcement mechanism is going to remain as it is, that there will be toughened enforcement. And so all of the nonsense that Chairman Rick Townsend, who is a disinformation peddler from the trial attorneys who are his biggest supporters, he's not going to be able to lead them down the primrose path and get a ban bill. So I think that's great stuff. And we're going to continue to, I see it. We're going to continue to fight this battle.
You are so correct, Sherry.
Well, thanks to all of those that support us. And I appreciate people calling me out when I make a mistake. I'm willing to own up to it and try to correct it. In this case, I didn't make a mistake in Georgia. It was a calculated risk that we had to take, and I think that in the end, it played out to be exactly what we needed to do.
Yeah, and I've said a couple times that you have been doing this for 10 years, and you have finally reached your peak of not accepting the nonsense anymore, because that's your tagline. This is nonsense. Yeah. This is nonsense. Well, now you're putting that nonsense on the pedestal and you're knocking that crap off.
Yeah.
It's like, I mean, you can't do it with a soft voice. Like, oh my God, guys, can't ban Kratom.
If anybody wants to ask why, what was the pivot point for me? I can tell you exactly what it was. I would not do it. I'm too big of a wuss. I wouldn't do it without the two of you backing me. And that's the only reason I've done it.
We always got your back, Matt.
Yeah, we got your back. And no, we're not drinking some Kool-Aid cult. I don't want to hear that crap.
Well, thanks to both of you. I appreciate it very much.
All right. Well, you have a great Saturday, and we will see you guys. Like I said, hit the subscribe button or the notification bell, because we go live at any time, except Saturdays. We go live at 2 p.m. Eastern time.
Great.
And Mac is available.
Thanks.
Right. Thanks,
Bye, everybody.
For coming. Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.